How does love fit into your worldview of reality, if at all?
Yeah, love is very mysterious word. Um, you know, as mysterious as God. God is love
Mm.
in the Christian tradition. But how does it fit into my worldview? Oh, I would say when I was younger, I used to conceive of it actually as selfless action. Those acts you take when you purposely take an act that doesn't necessarily serve your direct individual organismic, if that's a word,
Mm-hmm.
self-interest,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you have children, if anyone's ever had children, like you'll feel that, right? You'd rather see your kid eat than you eat, right? You'd rather get shot than your kid get hurt, things like this. And that's not obviously that from a selfish gene standpoint, that's still selfish behavior, right? Your genetics are protecting the possibility of your genes flowing further into the future. That when you protect your offspring, you're doing that. So that was my earlier, less sophisticated view of love growing up, just selfless action. And this is before I had such a reverence for the term action, actually. Um, I would credit Vervaeke with making my view on love more sophisticated. I really love that quote he often cites where he says that, I hope I'm saying this correctly, but love is the moment of painful realization that something other than yourself is real.
Yes.
Um, that meta existential step outside of yourself, right? He also refers to this as like a reversal of the arrow of realization. I'm sorry, the arrow of relevance, right? Immature young people, you're like, how is the world relevant to me? How
Mm.
do I get more out of what I want out of the world? How do I get people to see the way I see it? How do I get them to understand me? Like you have this very egocentric orientation to the world. And I think you could almost define maturity as the inversion of that, right? You start to say, oh, wait, how am I relevant to other people? How do I give back to the world? If I don't like this, that, and the other about the world, how do I create a difference? How do I make it easier? Even simple things, right? Like, again, when you have kids or a significant other, oh, she had a hard day at work. How do I make her night easier? Like you go from and I'm not saying this is universal. Again, echoing back a lot of what I learned from Vervaeke, and then also just kind of mapping it on my personal life, that in immaturity, I felt much more concerned with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then through experience and study and influence from others and adversity in life, right? You start to learn life is short. Um, it's the small things that ultimately matter. That you thought you may have had these big dreams about what you were going to do, but then you might achieve some of those dreams even and realize that that's not where the real sweetness of life is. Like you'll accomplish these big things. You might even feel a letdown afterwards.
Yeah.
People, the
Often.
hedonic treadmill effect, right? If I could
Mm-hmm.
just get the job, or if I could just buy that house, or if I could just get this car, if I could just get this girlfriend, whatever the thing is. And then you achieve your goal that you've been working on for so many years. And then after a period of elation, right, you might feel really good about it for some time. You'll eventually have this drift back down to earth, let's say,
Yes.
this depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you got to do? Well, you got to set another aim, another goal. Again, we're aiming creatures. If we don't have an aim, something to work towards, then we're very dissatisfiable, I guess. And so love, man, it's such a trip. it's also a very loaded term in English
Of course.
because ancient Greeks had many words for love.
Uh-huh.
That absolute selfless love that you have for your child, agape,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's God is agape, not
Yes.
that God is love. You could also say, I love the bag of Doritos. That means that's more like eros, right? That's consumptive love.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to consume God. You don't want to consume your friends. You don't want to consume your loved ones. You want philia, right? With the ongoing reciprocal opening that Vervaeke
Mm-hmm.
talks about. And so it underlies what's crazy about love. And that this is where it makes the Bible so much more relevant. Love and faith, they underlie everything that we do in a way. Because if you want to learn something, you need to love it, right? You need to open yourself to it, your time and your attention. And then you want it to reveal itself to you and give you revelation about it, right? Whatever, even reading a book, right? You need to love it to some extent.
Yes.
If you want to know someone, well, you need to love them. And this includes someone that's not, you wouldn't traditionally say you love, right? This could be your colleague. You're just trying to get to know them as a person. Well, you need to open to them and you need to be open to them
Mm-hmm.
to get them to, not get them to invite them to
Yes.
open themselves to you and be open to you in that reciprocal process.
Mm.
So it's love is like underlying all things, the even empathy, right? Like I forget which scientist this was to understand. God, who was this? I don't remember. He was a theoretical physicist, and he was like,
Okay.
I had to become the particle. I had to like have empathy with the particle. How would the
Yes.
particle feel in these circumstances? What would it want to do? I had to like put himself in its shoes, so to speak, to develop a theoretical framework for particle physics that actually worked. He had to project himself into. So there's a love there. Like you would
Yeah.
never think particle physics has anything to do with love, but it's
But it
again it's
does.
pervasive. And faith too, faith, this act of openness to the unknown, that we can never know things fully. Again, right? There's no guarantee that any of your actions will create their intended outcomes. Even if you intend to take your next breath, well, anything can happen, right? You have no idea. Um, Anything can happen. And so there's
Mm.
this, again, faith is almost like this healthy, there's the less sophisticated view of faith, belief in the supernatural, belief in the guy
Yes.
in the sky, something like that. But like that's not exactly what it is. It's this humble perspective that we're very limited in terms of what we can know, in our ability to create controlled outcomes, right? We're very limited, right? The world's very complicated. Actually, it's complex. It's more than complicated. It's complex. It's a complex adaptive system, as are we. And everything is constantly in flux and mutual adaptation. Very difficult to predict things, right? We have to constantly be responsible, meaning that we need the ability to respond to things as they change. And so faith is more about that we're open and reverent even of the unknown and the unknowable. And this takes us back to language, where it's like you can never have all of it contained in language or contained in any epistemic framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Epistemology is inherently limited, it is finite. We exist in a realm of epistemic finitude, and we cannot have infinite or totalized knowledge. And this faith, traditionally associated with theology, right? Like faith in God,
Yes.
I think is a protectorant, if that's a word, a protection, let's say, against totalitarianism, which
Mm.
is that condition of totalized knowledge.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Ideas that are so good and so complete that they have to be imposed, right, with force and coercion. And there's a reason why people that, communities that tend to be more theologically inclined tend to be more resistant to
Of
totalitarianism.
course.
So all of these things, I think, go hand in hand.
Yeah. We've seen it happen.